Welcome, everyone, to this session of our May 2025 Microcap Conference. I'm Alex Hantman, and I serve as an equity research analyst here at Sidoti & Company. Today, we're pleased to be in conversation with Head of Finance and M&A, Jason Sawyer, of Quantum BioPharma, listed on NASDAQ under the ticker QNTM. During the presentation, please feel welcome to submit questions using the Zoom Q&A interface at the bottom of your screen. After the presentation, we'll open to your questions. And with that, Jason, I'll hand it over to you.
Thanks very much, Alex. It's great to be here this morning. Very happy to be presenting to everybody Quantum BioPharma, our biopharmaceutical research and development company based in Toronto, about 12 years old now. And as Alex mentioned, listed on NASDAQ under QNTM and also the Canadian Securities Exchange and Frankfurt. We should make mention of that, our other two forums. Please keep in mind we will be making some forward-looking statements, and you should be familiar with the legal language in here in terms of our disclosure. Alex mentioned I'm the head of finance and mergers and acquisitions for the company. I joined in August of last year at the request and after a 15-year relationship with this founder-led business. Zeeshan Saeed is the co-founder, CEO, executive co-chairman of the business. And after 30 years in venture capital, you can see a little of my background in financing, advising, starting sometimes a founder, and raising alternative assets in excess of $5 billion. We like to see founder-led companies that are driven by passion and conviction. We, as I mentioned, are an R&D focused biopharmaceutical company, and we have two platforms that are our key areas. One of them is for neurodegenerative disease, Lucid 21302. We call it Lucid MS because it's focused on multiple sclerosis. And Unbuzzed, which is a rapid alcohol detoxification product that's been developed pharmaceutical grade and by pharmaceutical R&D specialists. I'll talk a little bit here about what I mean by world-class. Our senior management team in science is led by Drs. Kotra and Krushinsky. You can see there to the right of their names some of the logos for the institutions that they're involved in. Dr. Kotra is a professor of medicinal chemistry at University of Toronto. So if you were seeking a PhD out of the illustrious U of T, you would likely pass by his office on your way through that process. Dr. Krushinsky, our head of clinical and scientific affairs, is both an MD and a PhD from Stanford. They both come out of the University Health Network, which for comparison's sake, one of the top 5 hospital systems and hospital research systems in the world. And this would be for our American shareholders and prospective shareholders, the equivalent of a Johns Hopkins or a Harvard. Dr. Eric Hoskins, also a director of the company, on the board of directors, is a former Minister of Health in the province of Ontario, where Toronto is located. Why that's relevant, I suppose, is that is the largest hospital system in North America, bar none. So a deep team in science and our focus on developing novel therapies, really a focus on innovative therapies in areas that are undercovered and have massive need. Those are, you may say that those two areas that we focus on, being neurodegenerative and alcohol misuse, are quite far apart, at least on the surface. But applying world-class science to both of these areas is what we've focused on in the last several years. And I'll talk a little bit here about Lucid MS, which is focused on multiple sclerosis and the demyelinating effect or the degradation of myelin. That is the sheath that surrounds the nerves in the brain and the spinal cord. And with the degradation of myelin, ultimately comes the breakdown of the signals as they pass along the nerves and neural pathways. We have a new chemical entity, a patented new chemical entity. Dr. Kotra has developed this after 40 years of preclinical science leading up to him taking this over in U of T and bringing it into UHN. Ultimately, this novel therapy is non-immunomodulating and has been proven in mouse models, animal models, and in preclinical science to not only stop the degradation of myelin, which is largely responsible for the symptoms that people experience in multiple sclerosis, but even potentially reverse it. We have gone through clinical phase 1 trials for human safety and tolerability successfully, and are now in the midst of 9 months of toxicity studies, which have been moving along with no material adverse effects coming from this treatment. The second product that we have developed, Unbuzzed, ultimately the alcohol market continues to grow, and prior to the formulation and now the commercialization of Unbuzzed, there's never been a product with any clinical results that allow you to rapidly take your blood alcohol content from buzzed or possibly over-imbibed down to a lower level very quickly. Unbuzz was created by the same science team that's developed Lucid MS and has now been has been licensed to a company that called Celly Nutrition that's changing its name to Unbuzzed. And that team is led by John Duffy, 22-year veteran of the Coca-Cola system, and advised by none other than Jerry David, who is the CEO, former CEO of Celsius Holdings, a company that also took a clinical approach to a hero ingredient, now going back about 15 years, and became a massive success in functional beverage. So Unbuzzed is a product that will allow you to rapidly bring your blood alcohol content down. It's now clinically proven. We finished the clinical study in December of last year. It was a randomized, double-blinded, placebo-controlled study in the 25 to 50 age group, both men and women, meaning that this was done just like this product is a pharmaceutical product, when in actual fact, it is a dietary supplement. You mix it in water, and it comes in a powder pack that you mix in water, shake it up, take it, and any of the effects that you have from overconsumption of alcohol are reduced 40% faster than the body can do naturally in the metabolism of alcohol, which happens in the liver. And this product really stimulates two enzymes that drive that process of metabolizing alcohol in the liver. It not only stimulates them and accelerates them, but it prolongs them. There are a pile of hangover remedies in the market. They're very, very big in Asia. There's quite a substantial market over there that's developed, but there's been nothing until this point that's been clinically proven to reduce your blood alcohol content up to 40% faster, and do it so quickly in 30 minutes. As a prehab, as a hangover-oriented remedy as well. As I mentioned, the vitamins, minerals, extracts, herbs, etc. This is largely a natural product, with the exception of sucralose. They also stay in the system and help with aiding the being a cofactor to the longer term metabolism of alcohol, and that's why you feel up. That's why you feel wake up feeling a lot better than you would otherwise. I'm just going to go back to Lucid MS and talk a little bit about where we are in the process. As I mentioned, we finished the clinical phase 1 at the approximately the end of last year. We recently announced a collaboration with Massachusetts General Hospital and 2 associate professors from Harvard. That study has started on something called a PET tracer, PET, which ultimately will allow us to, the PET scan is a much more sensitive type of MRI technology that will allow us to look at the lesions in the brain and to determine whether they're advancing or not. So that's a 2-year study, obviously with another illustrious institution, Massachusetts General, and scientists from Harvard, that we hope will move us as we move toward submitting our investigational new drug application with the FDA later this year. Q4, we're projected to do that, and hoping to start our phase 2, where our goal will be to get an efficacy signal like we achieved in animal preclinical models And I'm going to encourage you to go to our website and click on Lucid MS, the tab there, and watch the video of those preclinical models, animal models, where mice in several hundred mice in a trial that we did who were induced with the symptoms of multiple sclerosis, the demyelination, had no movement whatsoever in their lower bodies and tails, and with just under 60 days of treatment with our small molecule new chemical entity, they were back to we witnessed full functional recovery. And of course, the intention now is to go through a similar process in our phase 2, expected to launch in early next year, and to be able to witness and experience the same things in human patients with multiple sclerosis. This is a first-in-class treatment. This has never been done or attempted before. It is novel. And of course, our expectation is that it has the potential to be a breakthrough drug and not only apply to multiple sclerosis, but to other neurodegenerative diseases that have as their cause, at least partially, this demyelination that happens in the brain and the breakdown of that protective coating around the nerves and neurons that causes the symptoms, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, ALS, et cetera, would be some other examples of things that we expect, afflictions that we expect could be affected positively by this therapeutic. With the PET scan study, our hope is that the 10 times sensitivity in our ability to look at those lesions, that myelin degradation in the brain, will allow us to identify biomarkers and accelerate our phase 2, which could be a process here in the regulatory regime that could take up to 3 years. And we're anticipating, because of the successful use of this technology previously in drug discovery, we're expecting that we could reduce that phase 2 timeline down to as little as 18 months. So Unbuzz was developed in-house at Quantum. Quantum is an R&D company. We have no experience in bottling or commercializing in any way a consumer packaged good product. This is a massive market. The alcohol market itself is forecast in the next 8 years to grow by $1 trillion. That's 5.05% compound annual growth. So it's a massive market. There's some movement around the different demographics and the use and enjoyment of alcohol, certainly. And we ultimately see the opportunity expanding here because there has never been a product like this, as I mentioned, with the success of a clinical trial and done in the format at pharma level that ours was done. This product was out-licensed to Celly Nutrition. Celly Nutrition is in the process of changing its name to align with the Unbuzzed branding to Unbuzzed Wellness, I believe. And the idea here was, with no experience at all outside of R&D, we could formulate a fantastic product and help with the branding of it. But we wanted to find a team that had the success already in the marketplace in functional beverages. That team with John Duffy as CEO of Unbuzzed, Jerry David, the former CEO of Celsius that took it from a shuttered 10-cent, effectively delisted company to its $21 billion peak last year. Jerry was the one to take it up the first several thousand%, get the product into the market. And with the same type of approach, they had 5 clinical studies done that said that this product is effective. It'll help you burn more calories if you take it, if you drink it before you work out. And then that's now become a major global functional beverage success story. So the other spoke in that wheel is Kevin Harrington. Kevin was responsible, along with Jerry, for a lot of the marketing approach in Celsius. One of the original sharks on Shark Tank, an expert in digital media and marketing, social media marketing, et cetera, considered one of the inventors of the infomercial. Kevin is one of the early investors in this business, along with the other people that I've mentioned, and ultimately will be applying his skill sets to the marketing of this product. Quantum maintains a 7% gross royalty on this until we've been paid $250 million in royalty payments, and also maintains just under 26% of undilutable ownership in Unbuzzed until the Unbuzzed company reaches a $1 billion market cap. So there's lots of runway there. And obviously, we expect to see a lot of value manifest here. Unbuzzed itself is planning to go public. That was announced back in February. They have retained an investment banker and are currently in a private financing, moving towards an IPO. Ultimately focused on raising the capital that's necessary to take a product in a niche like this and to drive it out into the marketplace through that multi-channel approach. You can see here that Unbuzz has recently launched with Fusion in Puerto Rico. Fusion was the original Celsius distributor there. ATAC is a group of 80,000 convenience stores with brands that everybody on the call here would know across North America, 7-Elevens and Shells and products like that, and have been responsible for commercializing and taking earlier stage brands like this out into the market and being very, very successful in distributing them and then having driving resulting success for those products. Recovery. Ultimately, we've determined that the medical market, the emergency room market, and all the stats that we see in alcohol-related emergency room visits over the period leading up to and then throughout COVID as well, which obviously a very different era. That there's nothing since granular activated carbon and stomach pumping. There's really nothing that you could give an intoxicated patient to help them very quickly get back to a state of mental clarity and cognition. And so we're currently exploring the use really of the Unbuzzed formula, which Quantum maintains 100% rights of in the hospital medical environment. Important to note is that as an early stage company, largely pre-revenue here, except for the earlier stage revenue that we're deriving from the royalty payments coming from Unbuzzed. How's the company capitalized? I'll start with the bottom point here, our strong balance sheet. We have about 2 years of burn in the bank. We have no necessity whatsoever for a financing of any kind at this point in time. The material uncertainty related to going concern, most importantly, was removed. And since we announced that, and since these financials and the significant drop in our accounts payable and strengthening of the balance sheet have been released to the market, we have seen our share price. I'm just going to use the term generally here, and I know we're close to market open as well. After market open has more than doubled. This is a low float NASDAQ company, 2.7 million shares in total outstanding, approximately 50% of that available in the non-affiliate float. And with about $11 million US cash, which, as I mentioned, is a couple of years of runway, we're fully funded through the phase 2, the start of the phase 2, the scoping of it, the submission of the IND to the FDA, the launch of that phase 2. And as you can see by our approach to Unbuzzed, we really look to partner, whether that be with a large pharma company, and we have had all the inbound calls you would expect from having something as potentially groundbreaking as Lucid MS. But our intention is not necessarily to raise the hundreds of millions of dollars necessary to go through a full regulatory process, including phase 3 and commercialize a drug. But as I mentioned, there's been strong interest already for very good reason in looking back at this 40 plus years of preclinical, the successful phase 1, and now the scoping of phase 2. And our intention would be to de-risk the entire scenario by finding a partner that is financially capable of moving this forward with us. The studies that we've had done, and as I'm sure you can imagine, the analysts we've talked to in this space have said on numerous occasions, this type of breakthrough drug is the things that Nobel Prizes are made of. And obviously, we're incredibly optimistic. The science so far indicates that we are moving in the right direction towards something groundbreaking. The closing summary, I believe I've largely just covered. World-class R&D team. Lucid MS is a multi-billion-dollar shot on goal, and we own it 100%. Unbuzzed is making its way out into the marketplace right now, and you'll see that on an increasing basis. It is a standalone company. It's going public. You can see that our equity stake there is meaningful, meaning if Unbuzzed was able to go and achieve the type of success that other functional beverages that are in niche spaces have, that equity stake would be very, very valuable. We see that Unbuzzed has stated that they intend to list this year. And recovery, we're exploring at the moment how we enter that market, but we own 100% of the rights to that. Our balance sheet is strong. Operating efficiencies have been increased dramatically in the last year and a half or so. And we're very much looking forward to the catalyst that'll drive this business over the next couple of years.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Jason, for giving us a great overview of the company. So just a reminder, folks can submit questions using the Zoom Q&A interface. But maybe just to start us off, yesterday's announcement, that you're preparing for the investigational new drug application. I think you talked a little bit, the company is capitalized to get to the scoping of that. Could you talk a little bit more maybe about what that will look like and some of the endpoints for it? Yeah, I would love to hear more about that.
Yeah, so I think one of the things to point out here, I just took a quick look at the market there just to make sure that I'm kind of accurate to the moment. But with a 30 or so million dollar valuation on the business right now, 11 plus million dollars cash in the bank, we have not been able to find a single company globally that has an open IND in phase 2 that's worth less than $50 million. And I know that there are probably some analysts attending, and we've run this by the analysts we talk to that are considering coverage of the company now that we're moving into phase 2. And so there's a potential delta there. Obviously, the investigational new drug application process with the FDA and moving toward phase 2 will be a huge catalyst here that drives interest in this compound. And then moving into phase 2, hopefully with the results of the ongoing results from the PET tracer scan and our ability to look a lot closer at those lesions that the demyelination in the brain causes. And I'll mention as well that we are bringing here as a first-in-class product a therapeutic that is non-immunomodulatory. The other MS therapeutics that are there that are taken weekly through IV, et cetera, this is meant to be a daily dose pill form therapeutic. Those are all immunomodulating, meaning that they have a suppressive effect on the immune system, which can further exacerbate symptoms. So to have something that can stop the myelin degradation and potentially reverse it, we've seen signs of that in the animal preclinicals, is groundbreaking. And opening an IND in that space and the study that we had done on this overall marketplace, there's no other way to describe it, makes it at the, in getting those endpoint results and the efficacy signal that we're seeking in phase 2, makes it a multi-billion-dollar prospect.
Great, thank you. And I know we've spoken a little bit about, the novelty of the, neuroprotective mechanism. Is there platform potential here for, some of the other neurodegenerative diseases?
Yeah, as I referenced, there are two schools of thought on demyelination. One is that demyelination ultimately leads to the immunocompromised situation, and the other is so inside out versus outside in. The other is that the immunocompromised situation leads to the myelin degradation and perpetuates the disease that way. But in every one of the neurodegenerative diseases that I mentioned, the other area outside of MS, where we're focused right now, there are, by the way, per capita more MS patients in Canada than there are anywhere else in the world. So needless to say, as a Canadian born company and research coming out of U of T, it's something that we take to heart. But yes, the answer is this new chemical entity, small molecule, unique compound could absolutely be applicable to anything where demyelination is either the cause or part of the cause, whether primary or secondary cause of the disease. So those other terrible afflictions that we hear about, and possibly some of us are affected by, ALS, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, et cetera. Yes, this NCE could very well be a platform for all of that.
Great. Thank you for sharing. Maybe just switching gears a little bit to Unbuzzed. I think we heard, the effect size is about, 40% faster metabolism of alcohol. A lot of the other, products out there are, vitamin supplements, but not necessarily containing ingredients that actually help metabolize alcohol faster. Do you have a sense of, how much better or faster is Unbuzz than, some of the vitamin B, taurine, et cetera, types of products out there?
Yeah, absolutely. So the idea here was that for the people who are focusing on safer alcohol consumption or better recovery, liver health, et cetera, the milk thistle and the various herbal extracts, and like you said, vitamin B, all the things that you might be able to go out and gather yourself that are known to either accelerate or mitigate the risks of a accelerate the metabolism of alcohol or make you feel better the next day, mitigate the risks of hangover. It's wonderful to know about one of them, but combining 20 of them in the right dose, combining it with the right amount of water, hydration, the electrolytes that are there, the nootropics as well. There is caffeine in this beverage, naturally derived, and green tea extract, caffeine. Combining them in the right formula and allowing them to not only help you metabolize alcohol faster, up to 40% faster, or rather an average of 40% faster, what we saw in the study, but introducing some of those cofactors that will, by the time you've metabolized one drink in the liver, there are certain things that are exhausted and your body can't produce them fast enough. And this is why Unbuzzed will help you get back to mental clarity, full cognition faster, but it also prolongs that metabolizing of the alcohol, let's call it overnight and into the next day. So it's the formula. It's a world-class pharma team finally looking at all these things, and many that you've never heard of, that ultimately methylliberine and DHM, et cetera. And there are competitors out there that have components that are designed to make you feel better the next day, but will have no effect whatsoever on bringing that blood alcohol content down faster. You get both. Experiences with Unbuzzed.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you for clarifying. And maybe just for folks newer to the name, could you talk about trends in the stock price, over the last 6 months to a year? I know it's been up significantly this year.
Yeah, for sure. When I was invited to become a part of the business, the capital structure was very different. There was a rebranding of this business from originally from medical cannabis company to go back to the Canadian roots of this when that was a hot space, and very, very successful in creating assets, getting licenses, et cetera. But after that, there were a number of events that played out that had the company want to focus on real science and biopharma and finding Dr. Kotra and these assets and this incredible team. And so last year there was a consolidation of the capital structure to something to what you see now in the 2 to 3 million range share wise. That was obviously very effective. And we think a great step in conjunction with the rebranding to a pure R&D biopharma company and all the credibility that's now come along with that. The financials, the financial condition of the company has had a lot to do with that. And as I think most people attending a microcap conference would know, there are various forms of manipulation of microcap stocks in the market that have gone largely unchecked. Quantum and its predecessor name, FSD Pharma, were not only no exception to that, but were a very, very significant victim of that type of behavior. So much so that we saw a deterioration in the share price that was inexplicable. Pursued information on that subject vigorously, with experts in this space, and I mean people that have fought these battles before. And long story short, we filed a 700 million US dollar, certainly the largest of its kind, for a Canadian company, but a 700 million US dollar lawsuit against the banks that we allege are the perpetrators, or at least are the gatekeepers of this system that's allowed this to happen. And that has been filed in the Southern District of New York as a legal forum. We've hired the top lawyers in the business, and I want to be very clear that when those lawyers dug into this and analyzed all of the data, which is an incredible exercise. I mean, it's unfathomable how much data needs to be analyzed because of this spoofing thousands of orders per second that resulted in the misperception of the supply demand in the stock, which drove the stock down. Anyway, those lawyers signed up and said, this is an A-plus case, and we're bringing in financing to handle this. So I want to be clear that there'll be zero burden on the Quantum balance sheet as we move through this legal process to try and further assert our allegations and reach a result that could have a pretty massive upside to the company and its shareholders if it's settled, or ultimately a case is won anywhere in that range of 700 million USD.
And this is a contingency case, is that right?
It is, yes, yeah. It's been taken by the lawyers now that we've spent all the money, in short, that we're going to be spending on this. It is now entirely on contingency. There's legal funding outside of the company that the lawyers have brought in because the case is so strong that we won't have any further obligation to fund it, whether it's a 6-month settlement or a 3-year battle.
Great. Well, thank you very much for the context and thank you for sharing more about Lucid and Unbuzz and recovery and the company. So we are out of time, but very exciting presentation. Thank you for sharing the Quantum Biopharma story with us, and also I'd like to thank everybody for spending time with us this morning.
Thanks very much,